Welcome to episode number 7 of Affair Root Cause and Fix. Now, if you haven't watched the previous episodes, be sure to subscribe to my channel, ring that bell icon to be notified when I post another video, and start with episode 1 to really catch up. And just a reminder, if you feel that you may be victim of an affair, be sure to seek professional help because you probably need it. That being said, we're gonna pick up where I left off in the previous episode number 6. So after assembling all the evidence that I collected, it became apparent that there was not one person, but there were two people. There were two guys that my wife had an affair with, from what I could find, and I got the name and the phone number of person number 2 and the correspondence that had occurred by way of text messages. So the gist of that was that he was flirting with my wife, and it was some sort of out-of-state business guy, and he was trying to get her to come back to his hotel room. Now, I don't think it ever happened, but I had to approach it as if it did. And I had to step back and assemble a plan of attack, because I knew that I had to be strategic about how I approached it. So what I did, I had the phone number and I had the name. So like most anybody else would probably do, get on the internet, get on Google, and it's just a wealth of knowledge. So I was able to track down everything about this person. Obviously, public knowledge. I didn't do anything illegal. I was just searching, just public internet search, and found out, where they went to school, where they lived. They've got a wife. They've got kids. Where they work, what their job title is, why they were in town, when they were trying to get my wife to come back to the hotel room with them, and I pieced all that together. So I knew that I had to take some sort of action. I'm the type person that something like this happens. I'm not the fist in your face kind of guy. Trying to get thrown in jail or anything, but I am the type person that's going to make it known that you're not Mr. Secretive or whatever. That I've caught you. So, put a lot of thought into it, and one of the comments during that text correspondence was something along the lines of, "Oh, I'd never get caught," or something like that. That was a comment that he had made. It made it in a very cocky way. Fortunately, it seemed that my wife did not go to his hotel, so he was trying to reassure her that he was smooth, and this wouldn't. He would never get caught, and she would never get caught. So that was his final attempt to try to get her to come to the hotel. So what I did, I called the person's employer and said, "By the way, I found a sport coat, and it had a business card and a lunch receipt in it." And I said, "I found it in this city." It just made it really, really strange. Why would this guy have a sport coat with a business card in his city? So I just made a very awkward, made this very awkward for this person. And obviously, the reason I was calling to do that was for them, without asking, for them to confirm, "Oh yeah, so and so, yes, he works here." That was their formal acknowledgement that the person that I was looking for, because I had his name and I had his phone number, but I didn't have his employer. So by performing my Google search, what I was able to do is figure out where I thought that he worked, and the fact that I used that as an excuse to call the employer and say, "Oh, I found so-and-so's jacket. It had their name in the pocket of the sport coat." That was, "Oh yeah, he does work here." That was their immediate acknowledgement. So I knew I had found the right person, and the right employer. So I said, okay. I said, I'll mail the sport coat out. What's your address or whatever. I didn't have a sport coat. That was just a hook to get their confirmation that I'd found the right person covertly. So what did I do? Well, I waited. I waited a few weeks, and then I called and I said, let me talk. I said, may I speak with so and so? And excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Huh? Excuse me. So I said, may I speak with so and so? And they said, yes. May we ask who's calling? I said, that's not important. I said, this is a personal matter, but thank you. Because I wanted to make sure the guy had an awkward experience with his people at work, because they would obviously know something was up. And so I waited for him to get on the phone, and he answered, and I said, hey, how are you doing, Mr. So-and-so? And he said, doing well. And then I just jumped straight to the point. I said, why did you have sex with my wife? And then he started to stutter, and you could just, again, you could feel the fear through the phone. It was a rewarding feeling of relief. And he said, hold on, let me go in my office. So it's obvious that this guy had been put in an awkward situation at his place of employment, and he was trying to hide in his office to continue the conversation. So he got in the office, and then he started trying to explain himself, this, that, and the other. He said, I did not have sex with your wife or whatever. And then I just said, look, I said, enough of this. And then that's when I said, look, I said, you've got a wife, you've got kids, you went to school here. Do you really want to, jeopardize your own life for something like this? I said, you went to a church school growing up. And I knew everything about this guy just from public record on Google. And he got really freaked out. And obviously there were no threats, but it was, well, he said, I'm so sorry, this, that, and the other. And, the conversation just went on. And he confirmed that he then fessed up to trying to get her to come back to the hotel, but he confirmed that she never did. And after he said that, I said, well, actually, and then that's when I had the text message correspondence. I said, what you said matches up. And I was just reciting the correspondence between the two of them. And I said, this one line within this text message thread was really got to me. And that was your arrogant comments about, how you never get caught or whatever. And I said, you have been caught. And I just want you to know that, not only have you been caught, but I said, I know everything about you. I know, I know you've got kids, a wife, and I said, I'm sure they would not want to hear about what you did. And then that's when he really got freaked out. And then I just said, hey, I said, you've been caught, and, there's going to be some rules here. If you're ever back in town where my wife is, you're never to ask for her. You're never to speak with her. If there's any sort of business, I said, I don't want to interfere with your business, but if there's any sort of business that needs to be done, you're to go to someone else at that organization where my wife works. Even if you have to take your communications further up the chain in an awkward fashion, you will have to do that, because you're to have no correspondence whatsoever with my wife. And then he was just like, yeah, sir, yes, sir. He was legitimately concerned and legitimately begging for me to not escalate this and let his wife know about what he did. And, being as upset as I was, I almost took it to that level and told his wife the entire story and almost shared the entire correspondence that he had with my wife. But I didn't do it because I know, I don't know, but I feel fairly confident that this individual, number one, should never reach out to my wife again, and number two, has probably learned a lesson and has probably learned that they're not invincible, that the comments that they had made during the dirty text correspondence with my wife that, pretty much they never get caught, this, that, and the other, realized that he was an idiot. So, yeah, I didn't take it anywhere else because I've, sometimes you get a good feeling about things, and I felt fairly confident that, number one, nothing had happened, and number two, that no future attempts would be made. But that was an eye-opener because that was number two of two that I discovered after analyzing my wife's phone. So, do I want to stay married after discovering this? Because that was one of my conditions. I said, now, if I find there's anybody else, I said, I'm not even going to keep the option of remaining married on the table. That's going to be it. And so I found this on my own, and my wife didn't tell me about this. So I was upset about that, having discovered this. So that led me to believe, what else might there be that I haven't discovered yet? What else am I overlooking? I can't be so good that I've been able to catch and accurately reassemble everything that's occurred. That's, again, statistically highly improbable that someone would be capable of that. So, I feel like there was still something else. So, anyway, I got that one off of my plate. I feel like that call really hopefully accomplished something, and hopefully that person will never rear their head again around my wife. So, I felt good about that. But the first person, the one that was going to my wife's hotel room at the trade show, that was a special little animal. And, that's someone that I had to, again, I had to readdress and reassure that nothing else would happen with them. So now it's about to get really exciting. So subscribe, ring that bell, stay tuned, and listen to episode 8 to hear what happens to that other individual, the one from the trade show that actually was in the hotel room with my wife.